Hello, everybody. This is Jill Garvin, the Director of Psychological Health for the 102nd Intelligence Wing, and welcome to our Wellness Podcast. Today, I have Technical Sergeant Mandy Givens from the 102nd ISRG here today. I wanted to have her on because she is a member of our resiliency team here at the 102nd. We meet monthly and we talk about different things going on at the wing, different issues, different trends, different subjects, and how we can address them, how we can help morale, how we can help our members here that may be struggling. And we have so many different folks here that have different backgrounds, different skills, different trainings. And I really, I've heard Mandy talk, and she is a master resiliency trainer. And when I heard her talking about this at our resiliency team meeting, I was very impressed with her training, but also just her personality and her ability to connect with people and her desire to connect with people and to help others. And so I really wanted to ask her to talk about the master resiliency training and how that can help others and how we can utilize that a little bit more here at the wing. It's a very intensive training. And I just want to have a little bit of a conversation about that. And then she'll talk a little bit more at the end about some projects that she's working on. So can you tell us a little bit about the MRT training? When did you go to that? What is it about?
Well, Jill, thank you for that introduction. Yes, I attended Master Resiliency Training at the Air Expeditionary Center at McGuire Fort Dix back in 2014. And I was selected for that position due to some personal adversity. I had lost a pregnancy and I was going through a hard time in my marriage at the time. And my flight leadership recognized that and saw that I was a good candidate and that I would be receptive to the training that was offered. So I initially started out as a resiliency training aide. So I'm kind of backtracking right now.
Were you in the ISRG at the time?
No, this was for my active duty career.
Oh, when you were active duty. Got it.
Right. And I ended up helping our wing instruct like resiliency down days, some flight training, and then due to my passion, I was recognized by our master resiliency trainer at the wing for an opportunity to go TDY. And so speeding back up, that's when I went to McGuire Fort Dix for the training. The training was 10 days and half of the material was instructional and then the other half was for us as students to instruct then the material that we had just learned. And it definitely requires you to be vulnerable and you have to be receptive to your own emotions. That's the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway, I think, from resiliency that I really want people to understand is that it's about working on yourself so that you can help others. But we really, as individuals, need to take care of ourselves, learn how we receive our own emotions and being able to put out positive energies and to help other people when in their time of need.
Yeah. A couple of things I wanted to comment on was that your leadership took interest in what was going on for you and recognizing the loss that you had and recognizing that perhaps giving you this opportunity to become involved in this training where you could use your tragedy and loss and perhaps carry a message and do some service by using your tragic experience to help others, which could help aid in some of your healing, that's really remarkable that they took that interest and that you were also willing to do that and that you were open to it. I'm sure it was probably, like you said, you had to be a little bit vulnerable to do that. I'm sure that was very scary. What was that experience like initially? And then did it get a little easier once you got a little bit of experience in the group?
So, Jill, that's a really great question because for me at the time, I wasn't very receptive to it. Being that I'm already a minority in the military as female, I could not hide the fact that my pregnancy was not successful. So coming back into work from that tragedy, it was almost as if they really didn't know how themselves to treat me. And for me, I didn't receive it the best. I thought, well, maybe they're just kind of passing the buck to this program. They don't know how, to interact with me, but they know that
they
I'll
wanted to get rid of you. Like,
well, not necessarily
let's send her to a training.
Well, not necessarily get rid of me, but it almost felt like I was being alienated in a way. And I know hindsight that it was obviously the best that situation that I could have been in, but in the moment, I just wanted for my coworkers to treat me as if nothing had happened, and that I think that was just how I was coping with it, but I didn't really think of it from their perspective and what it would feel like for them to have a coworker that had gone through something so massive and how they would interact with me. It was such a range. There were people that offered to talk to me that I did not have a rapport with, very, close personal rapport. And then there were the people that were close with me that didn't know if they could speak about certain topics, as to trigger my pain. So going into the resiliency training initially, I just felt like, oh, well, I guess this kind of takes any kind of responsibility off their back as to
how to deal
how
with it.
How to navigate, right? Like with my emotions and how I'm dealing with it. And if anything, it just amplified my skills and capability on how to help them navigate my own pain. And it's funny that it comes up occasionally. And when I do mention it, some people, their initial response is to apologize. And that's, I think, appropriate. But I've also had people kind of tear up because then they internalize it and think of their own children that are living and how they would feel if they were to have lost a child. And it's interesting because that's not my reaction, because I don't know, maybe I guess the resiliency training has really paid its dividends, but the way that I've rationalized this whole situation in my particular case was that, human life is imperfect, and I know that I'm not so special that I'm the only one to have suffered from such a loss. And that kind of just helps me to keep moving forward and very open and to talking about it for that reason.
Grief is so fascinating to me because it is so individual. We are all so very different in the way that we deal and respond to grief. I know you said that when you returned, you wanted, I don't know if these are the exact words you used, but you wanted everyone to sort of treat you the same or act like everything was kind of normal. Did you want people to bring it up, to acknowledge it, or did you want people to not do that? Did you want people to not bring it up at work?
So for me, I try to think back at that time, and it was only a 4-week period where I was out from work. From the time they had last saw me, I was about 6 months pregnant, and then I showed back up to work 4 weeks later with no baby bump. And I really desperately just wanted them to treat me as nothing had happened for a period of time. And I I feel like I'm very tactful with these types of things. I made it clear that I was fine and that I had resources. And one of the things that I was active duty at the time, they had me go to a military psychiatrist, and I think I had 2 appointments with her just to follow up to see how my mental state was, make sure I wasn't experiencing postpartum depression or anything like that. So I kind of like said my piece, and then I would say it took about half a year for things to really go back to normal, where people felt comfortable enough through my own interactions and dealing with it and how I behaved to even ask, follow-on questions like, hey, I know it's been some time and obviously you wanted to be pregnant. Like, are you considering it again? And even then it seemed soon, but I was very comfortable and I didn't feel like it was an out of place question to ask someone. And again, like you had mentioned, this was just unique to my situation. And the more I've talked about it with a variety of women mostly, they couldn't fathom handling it, primarily because they had not ever had experienced that, particularly how long of a gestation period like the loss was. But they couldn't fathom handling it in that way. But that's the beauty of people, is that you just never know how you're going to experience adversity until you go through it. And then coming out of it, better, more growth and more development. The idea is that maybe you can help somebody through your story. And I think that's what motivates me. And that's my intent with the program and as a whole. And, to go back to your original question, like that wasn't how I was introduced into resiliency, but through the curriculum and then internalizing it and learning tools, I have really adapted them and adopted them into my life. And a lot of it is subconscious at this point. And I have to sometimes think about it whenever I do hear someone that doesn't have the same skill sets that I have. Mm-hmm. I have to kind of think from their perspective of like, I wonder. I guess I can relate to that because I was there at some point, but then what was it that I interacted with, or what was the mindset that was introduced to me that helped me get through it? And then I do my best to kind of talk them through it. And sometimes people come out okay. And then sometimes they're still not able to see that perspective, but all we can do is to try. I feel like just put your best foot forward and help people. And, just go into it as positive as possible.
Yeah. Well, thanks for answering that for me. One of the reasons I asked is because, we've got a lot of people here at the 102nd, and all of us experience loss, or we're going to experience loss. I had a loss in January just recently. We've had folks that have lost, parents, and there's just no way to avoid that. And often people are very uncomfortable with grief, and they don't know what to say or how to say it or how to be supportive. And I liked what you said about sometimes we have to let people know how to support us because, again, we're all so different. So sometimes it's important to let somebody know, hey, this is what I need, or this is how you can support me. So when you were, how long was the MRT training for?
It was for 10 days. It ended up being 80 hours of training.
About 80 hours. What would you say was the biggest thing that kind of shifted for you, or that was the most helpful? For example, was it some of the skills you learned? Was it just changing your mindset? Was it dealing with anxiety, stress?
For me, it was I was very fortunate with the group of people that I went with. I'm very grateful for the group, the classmates that I had. I kind of was a standout as a E5. The majority of my classmates were senior NCOs and even a couple officers. I think the highest ranking officer may have been a major. And I kind of felt intimidated to be around so much experience and leadership. So they, obviously they have numerous subordinates. Me as an E5, I only could, count on my hand how many subordinates that I had at the time. So it was a bit humbling to hear their experiences talking about their subordinates and how they've helped them, whereas I didn't have that experience. So whenever it was my turn to instruct, I had to really dive deep and be vulnerable to talk from my own personal experience. And that was the major difference for me. I think maybe that, thinking about it now, because I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question, but I think that could have been a changing point for me, was that I couldn't rely on experiences from people that I've helped at that time. I had to rely on my own personal tragedy and really share that with a lot of people. I forget how big our class was, but enough to really have it set in and apply those skills, because that was what the lesson was. So yeah, I would think that would have been the biggest turnaround for me, was just not having the experience of helping people through adversity like all my other classmates were, and having to actually speak out loud and actually work through it in a team forum almost, with my classmates.
Yeah. How would you say that it's helped you in your military career since you've been here?
Well, definitely since I've been here, it's helped me with my interpersonal relationships. And it's something that is just innate and intrinsic of who I am. If I'm working closely with you, I want to know who you are. I want to know what motivates you. I want to know what you had for dinner last night. And I just really want to get to know the people that I'm serving with. I know that it has helped people come to me for advice or mentorship or questions or wingmanship, where I feel like when I've opened myself up to that vulnerability of just getting to know people on a personal level, I feel like it makes them more comfortable to come to me when they need my help or they trust my advice.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was having a conversation with somebody today about, I have a lot of conversations with people, especially kind of lately, just a lot of morale stuff right now. I think coming back, with the pandemic and COVID and split drills and teleworking, it just, everybody's a little bit on edge, and those with kids and not knowing, exactly what's going on with schools and all that. It's definitely been more stress for folks, and so the conversation I was having today in particular was about, just some morale issues and people knowing their people, and supervisors knowing their people, and really kind of going back to basics, especially right now, and some of the suggestions that you gave, just, how are folks' kids doing, and what are their kids' names, and what are, some of the things that they've been doing, and some of their hobbies, but, really going back to basics and making sure that you know your people and the stresses that they have, is super, super important. Sometimes I get caught up in, it is Suicide Prevention Month this month, September. And of course, I have trainings that I have to do and some boxes that I have to check and those kind of things. And we talk about other ways for us to connect at the wing. And I really try to be careful to not fall into that, checking off the box and doing trainings and kind of doing this, some of the mechanical language that I can fall into, myself, in the mental health world. But it really is about connection and knowing our folks. That's how we take care of each other. That's how we connect. That's how we prevent suicide. That's how we take care of our mental health. It really, truly is all about that connection. And what would you say for to either supervisors or for some of our members that are struggling right now with with work stress or morale issues, like what are some like real tangible kind of skills that they could practice or things that they could think about that could maybe help change their mindset, that they could use that might be helpful from MRT?
Well, I don't have anything like verbatim for curriculum, but I will say something that has helped me. And I know that it's like, get ready for it because it's not rocket science, but take the time for yourself, reserve some time for yourself every single day. If you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling stressed, get a notepad, get a pen or pencil, write down what's stressing you. Brainstorm ways on how or like even come up with a plan, like brainstorm ways on how you're going to fight these adversities. Is there a plan in action? If there isn't, you know what? It's time to get your panel of trusted members to come into place, whether it's your family, wingmen, friends. Confide in the people that you trust the most to help you through these things, because as humans, we are a tribe, and as service members, even more so. So don't think that you have to shoulder the world. Even if you're a parent, I would say I try my best to relate to parents. I am not a parent, but I try my best to relate to them. I will hear them out. I will let them vent. I will be quiet, and I will say, I can only imagine, but I will always listen to anyone's problems. I will always hear them out. I will not pretend to be the expert on life in general, but I will be open to share my vulnerabilities. So yes, please take time for yourself. Try to work through these things on your own. And if you can't navigate through pen and paper, if you can't even talk through, because that's not crazy to talk to yourself. You're able to, that's completely acceptable to talk out loud and try to like problem solve. If you're not able to go through, these stressors alone, definitely reach out to your family and reach out to your wingmen and your mentors, and just be vulnerable enough to get the help that you need. Because at the end of the day, they care. We all care. And no problem is too big to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes when people come in to talk to me at the end, they feel very relieved and thankful, and I really haven't done or said anything. And I will say to them, it's that power of speech and saying things out loud that help you process what's going on, that sometimes help you kind of reframe what your experience is. And so whether it's me or you're talking to, a friend or someone that you trust, there really is a lot of power in that. And like you mentioned as well, a lot of power with pen to paper, writing things out is also another very powerful way to express yourself, as opposed to just, keeping things inside, which a lot of people will try to do, but it always ends up, coming out somewhere. So it's so important to talk. What are some ways that, because you seem very open to this, what are some ways that you in particular take care of yourselves, like yourself? Like what are some things that you do for self-care?
So I am a bit of a television buff. I subscribe to almost every streaming service. So for me, I love to be entertained, like most people, to some form or fashion. Yeah. And I love music. So one of the ways that I've been taking care of myself is setting aside time to watch something that entertains me. Another thing that I've done lately is watching that while on the treadmill, and at a minimum walking for at least an hour. And it's really been paying off on just like the stress relief that's pent up that you didn't even know that you were carrying in your body. And I just feel more energetic from it. And it's just walking. I'm not doing anything extensive. I mean, there are times where I'm like, okay, well, I really want to sweat. So, throw some running and jogging. But at a minimum, there's no heavy lift or heavy ask of myself. If I want to do more, I will do more, but I'm not going to put that pressure on myself, especially with, not being able to go into the gym, which typically would be lifting. Like, I love lifting weights. That's very therapeutic for me as well. It's my alone time. I put my earbuds in, I jam out to music, and I just really push myself in pushing weights. And another thing that I enjoy are my 2 dogs, Gordon and Chevy. They are my heart. I love them so much. And they just bring me so much joy. We do not deserve dogs.
So therapeutic.
They really
dogs
are
the best.
And I would be remiss if I did not mention my husband, Sean. He always has a listening ear for me, and he really helps me alleviate the stress that I have. I always bounce off of him, like the stressors, and he gives me a peace of mind. So I'm grateful to have a partner that is able to do that for me.
Yeah, you just listed some wonderful, exercise, which helps with dopamine and serotonin and things that do help with mental health and being entertained and enjoying those kind of things, and music and having a wonderful partner. And of course, animals are so therapeutic as well. So those are some great suggestions. So I wanted to ask you about some projects, or a project that you're going to be doing here at the Wing, a podcast, I believe. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I can. So thank you for that. I, through your help and Mr. Sandland's help, have news. I would like to launch the Warrior Airman podcast, and with the help of my uniform wearing service members and fellow airmen, I want to give them a voice, a platform to have candid conversation, to bring more unity and connectedness throughout this wing. Topics, I don't have like a set lineup of topics, but it could range from like looking into retirement, transitioning from being a military member to civilian, things that affect all of us service members, family, grief, like you had mentioned, grief before, and just everything that we deal with unique to us as military members. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to be launching that and to get a lineup and getting material out as soon as possible.
That's great. Just like you said, it's another way to connect. And I also think that people might feel a little more comfortable having certain conversations with you than they would with me, being a civilian. So I love that we're able to do all these different things here with, in public affairs, giving us this opportunity to have all these great conversations and connecting us. And if somebody wanted, sorry to go back to the MRT thing, if somebody wanted to learn more about that or wanted to utilize some of the MRT training or skills, can they utilize you or ask you to come and talk to their group or any supervisors or anything like that?
I want to say absolutely, but please deconflict with my leadership.
Yeah.
But
okay.
So that's something else. Aside from the podcast that is a project of mine, it would be the Warrior Airman Bulletin.
Okay.
And that would be like on monthly distro, where there would be some tools and skills included. And I want to also build a platform on there where I kind of get firsthand testimony from people within the wing, leadership primarily, probably to begin, just to kind of set the tone, just like, hey, who's who? And hey, what do you think about this? And, or how have you dealt with that? Just to kind of set the pace for what's to come with the bulletin. But there'll be a section that I want dedicated for that, but then also another section for tools and how to maybe overcome unbalanced thinking. I know I don't want to get too much on a tangent, but I think we can all relate to times in our lives where we've kind of overreacted. We've hit our tipping points, and that's something that we can all benefit from learning how to like hone in and balance our thinking and kind of like walk ourselves through like how emotions can sometimes have us react disproportionately to something.
So true. I love that. That's a great idea. So if anyone needed to get in touch with you or contact you, or they want to find out, or they're interested in doing a podcast with you, how would they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Outlook, and I am also a Title V currently, so please use my mill email. And you can also reach me at my personal email at mandy.givens@yahoo.com. And I'm open and willing to have conversation, and I really hope to hear back from members within the wing on getting, some podcast set up.
Yeah, that would be great. And I know I've asked you too to come back on with me so we could just have some conversations on different topics. I think, again, you bring a lot to the table and a different perspective, and I think that would be really, really helpful. So I appreciate it, and thanks for all that you do here, and I know you help a lot of people, so I appreciate you being here with me and having the conversation and being open with your story. That helps others, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so thanks for joining us today. I am also in the Global. If anyone would like to come on to the Wellness Podcast and share a story or a skill that you might have, or if you have any suggestions, please contact me, and thank you for joining us.